main star of the Big Meat Eater. He, for some reason, took the train up here to see the film. He hasn't seen it in how many years?
10 at least.
At least 10 years he hasn't seen the film. So and he's going to give a quick little intro, and then we'll do a very short Q&A afterwards, so stick around because he's got some stories. All right.
Hi, how are you? Great. Well, thanks for coming. I have to, our producer, Lawrence Keane, is in Vancouver. The director is somewhere between Myanmar and Thailand. So I was in Toronto, so I came. And wow, where did that 39 years go? Very briefly, I'll give you the genesis of this. I was a student in the theatre program at Simon Fraser University in the early 70s. And one day in the Theatre Brigham, there was a notice on the bulletin board that said, 2 film guys from the film school at SFU, run by the great Vincent Vacunis, were looking for volunteers. So I met Lawrence Keane, the producer, and Chris Windsor, the director. And funnily enough, Chris Windsor, like me, is an expat, although I've been here for 45 years. And Lawrence was born in London, but raised in Toronto. And so they said, look, we've got these little projects. I ended up doing 4 or 5 student films with them, including one called Campus Carnage, which was the genesis for Big Meat Eater. And then ultimately they came to me around 78 or 79 and said, look, we've got money. I was working at the Vancouver Playhouse and had just finished playing Hamlet in Hamlet. And then I got this script for Big Meat Eater, and it was kind of like from the sublime to Big Meat Eater. So I have to give a big shout out to Paul Gordon and John Yemen and Greg Boa from Library Archives Canada and the Lost Dominion Collective for the work they've done on this print. There'll be more stories about that later, but a big shout out to you guys. Thank you. And so here we go. Big Meat Eater. Thank you.
I think the fact that a lot of people didn't see that film years ago was why I kept working. Background. Wow, it was very strange seeing that after 10 years. And, as I was watching it, I can remember when we would do it. I mean, when I was first handed that script, we all thought, what the? But everybody, we had a wide range of talent too, from people that had some considerable experience and those that were either completely unpaid amateurs and just did it for the love of it. But every single person, whatever they were given to do, committed to it with a straight face. And I think, you know, if it works, and it does in its own bizarre way, that's the reason. I mean, but we were all young and crazy back then, and just literally out of theatre school and film school, and, you know, everybody was doing what they do. Someone came to me with a script at that stage, I said, sure, I'll do it. There were a lot of stories that later on, that when the film was finally released, you probably could explain them better than I could, but at one point, was it the internet? Was destroyed by a laboratory that had gone out of business and gone bankrupt, which left Lawrence and Windsor scrambling, and eventually, partially because of the archives, it was retrieved, and then these gentlemen went to town and made this print. What else? The guy that did the majority of the makeup, including my creature of the Black Lagoon, Todd McIntosh, he's gone on to have a huge career in Hollywood. And that was one of the first things they ever did. I mean, I remember I'd never had a mask made, and I went to his studio and he said, are you claustrophobic? And I said, I don't think so, why? And then he shoved 2 straws up my nose and poured this plaster of Paris all over my head. and said, now you can lay there for an hour until it hardens. It was kind of weird, but he's done, man, I was looking at him up today, Buffy, True Detective, Star Trek, it goes on and on. So it just goes to show when you practice on something like Big Meat or where you may end up. Do you have any questions you want to ask me rather than me just blather on? Yeah.
How much were you paid?
Sorry?
How much were you paid?
I'm still waiting. I honestly can't remember. It wasn't very much. We all did it more or less for fun, but it wasn't a lot. I think I had a grubby piece of paper which Lawrence Keane, the producer, had scribbled, if this goes anywhere, you'll get 5%. Well, I'm still waiting. The young lady right in front of me, yeah. Was the? Yes, it was. I found myself trying to remember where they got it all and what happened to it afterwards. I hope nobody sold it. But they had a contract with somebody, and they did have a big freezer, and stuff that wasn't touched went back into the freezer or the big refrigerator every day. But they found a local supplier who was willing for some kind of credit to supply them. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, you guys did the chemistry song there.
Oh yeah, the Daniel Sender Mondo Chemico. Yeah. No, I learned all the lyrics, which were incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
Because it was all off the chemical table, but we kind of ad-libbed the dance kind of thing. And then just went for it. There was a lot of just going for it, with as much commitment as you could muster. Yo.
Is there a place where you can possibly find this soundtrack and download it or what?
Haven't a clue, man. But it is, as you see, it's coming out in what, 4K HD or something?
Blu-ray.
Blu-ray. So keep your eyes. There is a Big Meter Facebook page, so keep your eye on that. I will tell you another thing. It was kind of odd, obviously, that Jan Wczinski, belonging to an Eastern European Moldovan family, speaks with a Cockney accent. And when we first started shooting it, the 33 days of the shoot, and I went to the director, Chris, and I said, look, I don't mind, but why the accent? And he said, when you think of everything else we're doing in this film, you're asking me about that? So we just went with it. Never complained, never explained. They changed the ending much later, slightly. But that was stuff I wasn't involved with it. Most people stuck to what they were given and played it as it was written. And Chris would just say, no, please, just do this. I mean, why 5 Manilan hula dancers show up in the talent show? Don't ask me. Like most selfish actors, I looked at my part and went with that story. I mean, for me playing Jack was actually a relatively sane through line. I just had to believe in making bologna. But no, there wasn't a lot of improv, there wasn't Big Miller was fantastic though. He was an incredibly accomplished sax player who worked a lot out of Edmonton. And the boys that knew of him and they'd seen him play in concert. And they approached him and said, do you want to do it? And he just said, yeah. Anything else? Hang on a minute. Yeah, way back.
He said that they changed the ending. How did this movie originally end? Or what was the original script ending?
I can't remember. I think it had something to do with my Cadillac crashing into the alien spaceship. But I can't confirm that. But if you catch me before I leave, I'll get your email and I'll phone the producer and see if he can remember it. I'll catch up with you. maybe. What was the?
What were the shooting locations in Bytowne?
The shop, the swamp that I fell into, I think even the village hall. I mean, I was reading something a couple of days ago. I mean, I had to go back, 39 years and try and figure all this out. And at that time, White Rock, which is a beautiful BC oceanside town, small town outside of Vancouver, back then was very economically depressed. There wasn't a lot happening. And there were a whole bunch of, Lawrence said there were a whole bunch of, what do you call them, thrift, second-hand shops. So if we suddenly needed some kind of prop for the house or the shop or something, they just went to one of these stores and borrowed them and gave the guys a few bucks. What was that?
The fishbowl, did that come from, where did that come from?
That came from a florist's. It was originally a terrarium. Oh, I just remembered something else which I talked to Lawrence when we did FaceTime the other night. The night that I got my green creature from the lagoon thing done, I was really hungry and in need of a drink, and we didn't have a craft service truck or anything, but there was a little variety store 100 feet away from the set, so I thought I'll just go in. And I walked into the store looking like that, green, big red lips, and the guy behind the counter looked at me. He didn't bat an eyelid. He watched me walk around the store, get my O. Henry and my Snapple or whatever it was, and watched me pay and just stared at me. Never said a thing. How did you feel about the poor dog? When they came up with that, I went, oh, come on. But they did. So. Anybody else? Yeah.
Talking about the aliens, seems like a very economic way of doing it. Is this an action figure someone had?
When we started out with 50 grand and ended up at 175, they went to one of the thrift stores. There was no way we could do industrial light and magic and any of that stuff. So they were that crazy, particularly Windsor, the director went, we'll use these toys and people will buy it. And they did. I mean, it gets one of the biggest chuckles from the film, so. What? Yeah, I think it was. Something like that, yeah. Something else we talked about and I'd forgotten. It made an appearance at TIFF in Toronto, the Toronto International Film Festival. And one thing that happened was we were also in that festival, including Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, which is the Raiders of the Lost Ark movie, if you remember, in which they cut the heads off the tops of monkeys and eat their brains. Well, they got a general rating. We got hit with a restricted rating. And then the Ontario Film Review Board banned the film Big Meat Eater in Ontario. Primarily because of the obvious, to me anyway, plastic hand going into the fan belt. But one of the major film critics in Toronto got a call from either our director or our producer and said, can you believe this? And the critic, bless his heart, called up the Helen Brown, the head of the Ontario Film Review, and said, you have got to be joking. You're going to let Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, which is, you've given a family rating and have monkeys' heads chopped up, and you're going to give this hokey little, spoof. Anyway, the ban got lifted and the film kind of got shown in a few places. Any other hands, or is it all time to go and have some snacks? Thank you. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Okay.